Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Checkered Flag Corner. We just finished watching the Echo Park Grand Prix from Circuit of the Americas. It's been a great race. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, I got to give a shout out to a few drivers. First and foremost, Todd Gilliland, Noah Gragson, Chase Elliott. They've all had great days today. Uh, Todd Gilliland, Noah Gragson, mid-pack teams, mid-pack cars, up in the top 10 today with top 10 finishes. Chase Elliott spins in turn one, works throughout the race to put himself back into position, comes home with a solid top five. Shane Van Gisbergen was very strong early on, had a lot of problems today, but ultimately came back with a top 10 finish. So impressive drive out of the 88 team. Of course, they were one of the favorites to win this race, but there's still multiple other road courses to go. But let's talk about the race. Now, first and foremost, Tyler Reddick starts on the pole, loses the lead a few laps in to that 88 of Shane Van Gisbergen. Of course, the 88 was very, very strong early on. As I had said, they dominated the majority of stage one. But with just a few laps left until the end of the stage, they came into pit, took tires, took fuel, all that good stuff. And Bubba Wallace will get a stage win. I believe that's his first stage win this season, but I very well could be wrong. So, I'm not perfect. And with that said, we get to stage two. Stage two was largely uneventful. Ryan Preece brings home the 60 for RFK Racing to win stage two. I believe that's his first stage win of the season. Again, if I'm wrong, just correct me in the comments. I'm not perfect. I don't remember everything. So much happens between the beginning and end of a race. It gets hard to remember a lot of details, and I don't take notes. I know I really should. But with that being said, Ryan Preece comes home to win stage two. There were two cautions for incident. One took out half of the Trackhouse Racing cars. The 99 got spun coming through that last series of turns. I believe it's turns 19 and 20, that little short chute between there. I believe that's 19 and 20 on the full circuit. I counted how many corners there were. I kept coming up with like 15 turns altogether, so I don't know what layout they were looking at or if I was just miscounting. Of course, when they go to a different layout of a track that they've been going to, it gets a little confusing anyway. But that little short chute there, as they come to that final turn, the 99 of Suarez got turned, and unfortunately, as he was spinning, he spun directly into the path of the 87 of his part-time teammate, Connor Zilisch, who won the Xfinity Series race yesterday in the 88 for Junior Motorsports. But by the time the 87 got there, there was just nowhere left for him to go, and he plowed into the 99 head-on. Unfortunately, that took both Suarez and Zilisch out for the rest of the race, which is unfortunate because, for one, I love seeing that Red Bull car back on track, and Zilisch was working his way back up through the pack. He had a decent chance today. But with that said, the second caution for incident is a little more interesting. Now, initially, I thought maybe Hamlin had just missed the turn coming into 6A and 6B from the S's, but upon closer inspection, I realize now that Hamlin blew a tire. And if you watched my TikTok on this race, disregard what I said about this incident, because that was filmed earlier. So, Denny Hamlin blows a tire, gets into Austin Dillon, they spin. Hamlin stays on track, is able to drive away immediately. The caution comes out. Caution came out because Austin Dillon got stuck in the gravel trap, or what they called the kitty litter. I've never heard it called kitty litter before. I've always heard it called gravel trap. So, when I say stuck, I mean his car sunk. You look at the front rims. The gravel went up over the bottom part of those front rims on the car. He had to be pulled out, and once he was pulled out, he was able to get back going and get back to trying to be competitive. But that was the second caution for incident. Now let's talk about the closing laps of this race. Oh, man, the closing 17 laps of this race or so were some of the best competitive racing I have seen at a road course in the past couple of years. for one, it really came down to 4 drivers. You had Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, and they were all fighting it out. They were basically equal car lengths apart, and they were snaking their way around the track. I mean, where Kyle Busch went, the other 3 went. So they were equally as competitive. It was anybody's race. But the real deal comes down to Christopher Bell versus Kyle Busch. Now, of course, they had an argument here last year, maybe the year before, I believe. So Chris was trying to race Kyle as cleanly as possible. Now, of course, they did bang fenders a few times, but nobody got spun. It was just competitive racing. Kyle was very strong in the closing laps of this race, but unfortunately his car just did not have very much left in it to do what he needed the car to do. And Christopher Bell was able to put his car, eke his nose in a little bit just to get to where he needed to be, fake him out and get past him. Christopher Bell actually missed turn 1 and let Kyle get back out there a little bit. But ultimately, Bell makes the pass on Kyle Busch with, about 5 or 6 laps to go. And once he made that pass, Kyle sank like a rock. He fell back to 5th, but there was nobody behind him close enough to really get to him at that point. And he just couldn't get the car back to where he needed to be to get back up there with the leaders. Then the battles shifted to Bell, Byron, Reddick. Reddick was trying to hang back, waiting for one of them to make a mistake and take each other out, which, I'll be honest, I kind of thought that was going to happen at multiple points in these last 17 laps. Either Bell and Kyle were going to take each other out, or Bell and Byron were going to take each other out. That's not what happened. Byron kept trying to put his nose in there in the corners, but ultimately he never could get close enough to make that race-winning move. So heartbreak for Byron, heartbreak for Kyle Busch. Kyle is now on a 50-plus winless streak. They really wanted to break that winless streak today. That's just not how things shook out. But Christopher Bell brings it around a few more times, and Christopher Bell wins the Echo Park Grand Prix, goes back-to-back, winning last weekend and this weekend. The DeWalt guys look very, very strong early on in the season. Let's see if they can carry that momentum throughout the rest of the races this season. But yeah, that number 20 DeWalt car, the yellow and black colors, look fantastic on track today. The Raptor car, I like that paint scheme this year, better than the ones in recent years. They look strong today, but they just couldn't put together that last set of moves that they needed to be in victory lane. But overall, good, clean racing from all 4 of these drivers up to the end there. Really entertaining to watch. One of the most fun races I've seen this year. I mean, I know we're only 3 in, but NASCAR was pretty good on officiating. There was a lot of confusion early on as to whether or not you could cut turn 6 with track limits. And NASCAR did eventually confirm that, there's no track limits through turns, 6A, 6B. So do whatever you want to do there. Because Kyle Busch had said something over the radio. He says, I think a lot of these guys are cutting this turn back here. We really need to find out what's going on there, because that's BS if they're going to cut it and not get called. Which I agree, but thankfully they did make it clear, no track limits there, do whatever you want. But with that said, the DeWalt guys went back-to-back. Christopher Bell looks very strong early on and becomes the first multi-race winner of the 2025 Cup Series season. Of course, we look ahead to next weekend at Phoenix. We start the West Coast swing, which is now shortened to 2 races, Phoenix and Las Vegas. The next 6 races are on Fox Sports 1. You've got Phoenix, Vegas, Martinsville, Homestead, Darlington. Going to be a lot of fun to see these races. Of course, I can't wait for Darlington. Throwback race is usually the first Darlington race of the season these past few years. So throwback race is coming up pretty quickly. Can't wait to see all the throwback schemes that we're going to get this year. But with that said, that's going to do it for this one. Overall thoughts, pretty good officiating by NASCAR. Fantastic racing throughout the day. Pretty clean race. Only 2 cautions for incident. A lot of lockups. Not a lot of tempers really flaring out of control. Of course, I do want to hit on this, which if you watched my TikTok video on this race, I didn't hit on this at all. Soon as the green flag waved on lap 1, Carson Hocevar back on the same business. I guess he got loose, but he almost caused like 3 wrecks within 10 seconds of each other right as the green flag flew on lap 1. He did try to pull a few aggressive maneuvers today, but nowhere near the amount and velocity of the ones that he pulled last week and the week before at Daytona. So, yeah, really interesting. Looks like Carson has kind of chilled a little bit, but we'll see how that fares throughout the rest of the season, especially once we get closer to the regular season finale. I think the regular season finale is at Darlington these days, if I'm not mistaken. The schedule changes so much every year that you can barely keep up with it on a good day. So, with that said, that does it for the Echo Park Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas. Christopher Bell takes the DeWalt boys to victory lane back-to-back weekends. 20 looks strong early on in the season. We look ahead forward to next weekend at Phoenix. And until next time, we will see you in victory lane.